I'm my mother's lawyer. Judge Harper stared at her over the rim of his glasses, blinking. Excuse me? Anna stepped forward, her voice clear despite her cracked lips. My mother is innocent, and I will defend her, Your Honor. I have the right to file for special advocacy under the Georgia Juvenile Court Act, Section 1511103, Paragraph B. The courtroom erupted in quiet murmurs and sharp inhales. Charles Renshaw, the billionaire real estate mogul sitting smugly at the prosecutor's table, narrowed his eyes. That can't be real, his lawyer muttered under his breath. She's quoting statute from memory? Anna didn't look at them. Her gaze stayed fixed on the judge, her hands gripping the handle of a battered plastic file box filled with handwritten notes, wrinkled papers, and a tattered paperback copy of Georgia Criminal Code. Some of the pages had been taped back together. Others were simply memorized. Danielle Bell, her mother, sat in stunned silence. She hadn't known her daughter had come, and she certainly hadn't known Anna had walked barefoot 6 miles from the shelter that morning, just to be in court. I read Title 16 and 17 of the Georgia Code, Anna continued, and I know that falsified surveillance evidence is grounds for case dismissal. The footage they're using against my mother was doctored. I can prove it. Where'd you learn that? Sneered the prosecution's second chair, a younger man in expensive shoes. In the public library, Anna replied, between my shifts at the diner and shelter school. Renshaw leaned forward. His voice oozed disdain. This is absurd. You're going to waste this court's time on the word of a filthy little nobody? Look at her, Your Honor. That child smells like the street. Do you really think someone like her can understand the law, let alone speak it? Anna didn't flinch. She turned to him with eerie calm. Section 244403, she said. What? Renshaw blinked. That's the Georgia rule on prejudice. Evidence can be excluded if its unfair prejudice outweighs its probative value, like a billionaire insulting a child instead of answering the accusation. Laughter bubbled from the gallery before being hushed by the judge's gavel. Judge Harper rubbed his temples. Anna Bell, you are 9 years old. You have no formal training, no credentials, and no guardian support in this courtroom. What makes you think I should allow this circus? Anna opened her plastic box and pulled out a thick yellow legal pad, its cover held on by duct tape. She flipped to a page bookmarked with a crumpled candy wrapper. I memorized the Sixth Amendment. I know the structure of a defense argument, and I know the legal precedents for wrongful termination and malicious prosecution. I may not have credentials, sir, she said softly, but I have clarity. I'm not confused about what's right. Her voice was small, but her words landed like bricks. Renshaw stood abruptly. This is insane. This girl is trying to make a fool out of the system. The poor always think shouting injustice will make their ignorance look noble. But you people, he looked straight at Danielle. You people are nothing but noise. Danielle gasped. Anna stared at him with cold fury. Don't mistake poverty for ignorance, she said. We don't have your money, but we have memory. And I remember every single line from People v. Warner, State v. Carter, and U.S. v. Jensen. The courtroom froze. Judge Harper leaned back slowly, visibly rattled. How do you know those cases? I memorized them, Anna said simply. I don't have a laptop, but I do have time. In the back of the room, an older black woman rose to her feet. It was Patricia Morgan, the former federal judge. Her voice, weathered but firm, cut through the tension like a knife. Let her speak. The judge raised his brow. Miss Morgan, are you here in any official capacity? Number, just as someone who knows brilliance when she hears it. She looked at Anna, and I believe the court would be foolish to ignore what she's offering. Offering? Renshaw scoffed. She's offering delusion and dirt. Patricia's eyes narrowed. And you're offering proof that money doesn't equal character. The judge took a long breath. All right, enough. He turned to Anna. I'll allow a pre-hearing, 1 hour. If you have evidence, real evidence, present it. But this is not a game, Miss Bell. If you fail to prove your case has merit, I'll have no choice but to dismiss you. Anna nodded once. Understood. As the judge adjourned for recess, murmurs swept the courtroom like wildfire. Reporters scribbled notes. A bailiff leaned in to whisper, "Kids got guts." Danielle finally found her voice. Anna, why? Anna turned to her, eyes shining with something deeper than determination. Because they think people like us don't matter, she said. And I'm going to remind them we do. The hallway outside the courtroom smelled like old wood, coffee, and cold sweat. Reporters were already gathering, whispering into their phones, jotting headlines, but Anna didn't see them. She sat cross-legged on a bench beside her mother, scribbling notes furiously into the yellow legal pad that had become her armor. Danielle watched her in silence. Her heart swelled with pride, fear, and confusion all at once. Her little girl had just stood toe-to-toe with a billionaire and held her ground. But that came with risk, big risk. "Anna, baby," she whispered, placing a calloused hand on her daughter's knee. "You shouldn't have done this. They're not going to take you seriously." Anna didn't look up. "They already did. The judge gave me 1 hour. That's more time than he gave the public defender. You're 9 years old. I'm 9 years informed." Danielle exhaled, her voice cracking. "This isn't your fight." "Yes, it is," Anna said quietly. "Because when they take you down, they take me down too. And I won't let that happen." At the end of the corridor, Patricia Morgan approached, her steps slow but purposeful. She held a folder under one arm and a look of complicated emotion on her face. "I pulled a few things you might find useful," she said, sitting down beside Anna. "Court transcripts from Renshaw's past suits. He sued employees before, always women, always poor, always alone." Anna took the folder with both hands, flipping through the pages with a speed that startled even Patricia. "He settles fast. Keeps things out of the news." "Exactly. But in your case, he's showing up in person. Why do you think that is?" Anna's brow furrowed. "Because he doesn't want to lose. And because, this time, he thinks he's already won." Patricia smiled faintly. "You're sharp." "I have to be." Suddenly, a sharp voice echoed down the hallway. "Miss Morgan, a word." It was Renshaw's lead attorney, Robert Hayes, a lean man in a charcoal gray suit with slicked-back silver hair. He approached with the confidence of someone used to being obeyed. He looked past Patricia and directly at Anna. "I'll make this simple. You walk away now, and we won't press charges for obstruction. You're a child. That'll buy you leniency. But if you continue, she'll expose you," Patricia said, her voice like steel under velvet. Hayes smirked. "She'll humiliate herself." Anna stood up slowly, her face unreadable. "Is that how you win, sir? By threatening little girls?" Hayes's smile faded. "I've read about you. You defend power, not truth." Danielle stood too. "Don't talk to my daughter that way." But Anna held up her hand gently. "It's okay, Mama. He's just scared." Hayes stared at her, something like discomfort flickering across his eyes. Then he turned and left without another word. Patricia exhaled. "They're not used to someone seeing through them, especially not someone your age." "I'm not trying to see through them," Anna replied. "I'm trying to make them see us." The courtroom door creaked open. A bailiff poked his head out. "Judge is ready. You've got the floor, Miss Bell." Anna tucked the folder under her arm, straightened her shoulders, and nodded. "Let's go." Back inside, the courtroom was no longer just a room. It was a stage. Journalists filled the gallery. Court officers lined the walls. Even the judge looked more alert than he had an hour ago. Renshaw sat like a king on a tarnished throne, watching with cool disdain. Anna walked to the front, dragging her box of evidence behind her. It made a soft, scraping sound as it moved, like the weight of injustice itself being pulled forward. Judge Harper looked down from the bench. "Miss Bell, you have 1 hour. Use it wisely." Anna opened her box and took out a small stack of papers. "Your Honor, may I approach the screen?" The judge gestured. "Proceed." She connected the courtroom projector, something no one expected her to know how to use, and pulled up a slide. It showed 2 security footage frames, side by side, same time stamp, 2 different locations. "The prosecution claims my mother was inside the accounting room at 10:18 p.m., she said. "This frame shows that. But the second frame, from the staff break room at the same time, shows my mother mopping floors. The reflection in the microwave door confirms her position." Gasps erupted. Anna continued. "The building's motion sensor logs retrieved through a public records request show no entry into the accounting room until 10:41. That's 23 minutes after the alleged theft." The judge leaned forward. "And the logbook," she said, pulling out a scanned copy, shows that the night manager, Mr. Lyle Stanford, signed out of the system 10 minutes before that, yet he testified earlier that he left after my mother. Impossible, someone murmured. Anna turned to Renshaw. Would you like to explain that, Mr. Renshaw? Or should I subpoena the IT administrator who admitted the metadata inconsistencies off the record? Renshaw's jaw clenched. His lawyer scribbled something frantic on a legal pad. Anna turned back to the judge. My mother is being framed, and every piece of evidence supports that, all because someone in power assumed no one poor could read between the lines. But I did. The judge sat back in stunned silence. Anna looked at the jury box, now filled with silent stares. We may not have wealth, but we have truth. And truth remembers. I remember. I remember every chapter of the law I've read. I remember every moment my mother worked 3 jobs while I studied at night. And I remember that justice, real justice, is not reserved for the rich. If Anna's quiet strength moves you too, give this video a like, Frey. And comment where you're watching from. You never know. Someone near you might be watching too. The room was so quiet you could hear the humming of the lights. Anna closed her binder gently. I rest my case. The judge didn't speak for several seconds. Then, slowly, he turned to Renshaw's team. You have anything to refute this? The lawyer stammered. We request a continuance. Denied. Danielle put her hands over her mouth. Tears welled in her eyes. Judge Harper turned back to Anna. Miss Bell, you've shaken this court. And though I cannot officially name you counsel, your advocacy has revealed grave discrepancies. I am ordering a full evidentiary hearing and immediate suspension of charges against your mother, pending investigation. Anna blinked. For the first time that day, she didn't know what to say. Danielle stood and pulled her daughter into her arms. You did it, baby. No, Mama, Anna whispered, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. We did it. And for the first time in a long, long while, the courtroom didn't feel like a place of judgment. It felt like a place of change. 3 days had passed since the courtroom had erupted into applause for a barefoot girl in frayed jeans. But for Anna Bell, the fight was just beginning. Outside their apartment, reporters loitered by the stairwell, their breath fogging in the cool Atlanta air. Danielle had stopped answering the phone. The shelter where they sometimes slept now received daily calls from media outlets offering money for Anna's story. She turned them all down, not because she was afraid, but because she didn't trust anyone who wanted her voice only after it became useful. Inside their cramped 2-room unit, Anna sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by papers, court rulings, security printouts, photocopies from the public library, all carefully sorted by topic. Her binder now bulged at the seams. The victory in the courtroom had secured her mother a temporary reprieve, but the charges were not yet fully dropped. Renshaw's legal team had filed motions to discredit Anna's findings, and a formal hearing was only days away. Patricia Morgan, who had become a quiet constant in their lives since the hearing, stood by the window nursing a mug of black coffee. She watched Anna with the kind of awe that only came from seeing something rare, something almost holy. Do you sleep, child? She asked. Sleep is expensive, Anna said without looking up, and we don't have luxury. Patricia smiled faintly. That's something my mother used to say, too. Danielle appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Anna, baby, you need to rest. Even warriors have to sleep sometime. Anna glanced up. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion, but they burned with purpose. I found something new last night. Renshaw's payroll system, it auto-generates manager approvals. But on the night they claimed you accessed the accounting room, no approval log exists. It means the door couldn't have opened at all unless someone bypassed the system. Patricia's brow rose. That's solid. Can you prove it? Anna nodded. Yes, but I need access to the employee login archives. Patricia hesitated. That's not public. I know, Anna said, but it's on the city server, and Renshaw's company receives federal contracts. That makes some of their data legally requestable. We just need the right format. I wrote a FOIA request template. Can you review it? Danielle stared at her daughter as if seeing her for the first time. How do you know all this? Anna finally looked up. Because I listen when adults think I'm invisible. Silence fell, and in that moment, All three women realized something unspoken. Anna wasn't simply trying to free her mother. She was dismantling an empire built on silence. And she was doing it with nothing but paper, memory, and sheer will. Later that afternoon, they visited a local nonprofit office where Patricia had arranged temporary access to legal tools and printing services. It was a modest space, flickering lights, donated desks, but it was enough. As Anna typed, an older man entered and froze mid-step. "Is that her?" he whispered to Patricia. "The girl?" Patricia nodded. "The girl who can recite Title 17 better than most attorneys I've known." The man approached slowly. "Miss Bell, I'm Jacob Langston. I used to work at Renshaw's firm. I saw the footage from your hearing. I think I can help." Anna looked up, cautious. "Why now?" Jacob sighed. "Because I've lived with my cowardice too long. I approved terminations I didn't agree with. I watched good people lose everything just to meet quotas. But what you did, it gave people like me the courage to stop looking away." He handed her a flash drive, payroll records, internal emails, and a folder marked Special Access. "That's the override log for the security system. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did, and now it's yours." Patricia took the drive. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Jacob nodded. "Yes. I already lost my job. I might as well try to keep my soul." That night, Anna sat in silence, reading every document on that drive. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through emails, termination threats, altered timestamps, internal messages with subjects like cleanup protocol and external story management. She printed them all. At one point, Danielle sat beside her, arms crossed over her chest. "Do you know what you're doing, sweetheart?" "Yes," Anna said, eyes glued to the screen. "You're not just fighting for me anymore." "I know." Danielle put a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Then let me fight with you." Anna turned, her expression softening. "Okay, Mama, let's do it together." The following morning, they entered the courthouse not as a terrified mother and her brilliant child, but as a team. Inside, Charles Renshaw sat at the defense table, flanked by two lawyers and a PR consultant. He wore a dark suit, but no smile. The public tide had shifted after the last hearing. For the first time in his career, the court of opinion did not belong to him. The judge entered. "We are here today to review new evidence submitted by the defendant's advocate, Miss Anna Bell." Anna stepped forward, her binder in hand. "I have 3 exhibits, Your Honor. Exhibit A is the payroll record discrepancy. Exhibit B is the override log for the security system. And Exhibit C is a series of internal communications suggesting coordinated efforts to falsify events." The judge reviewed the documents slowly. Renshaw's lawyers shifted in their seats. Then came the turning point. "Your Honor," Anna said, "I would like to call a witness." Everyone turned. "I call Mr. Jacob Langston." Gasps filled the room. Renshaw shot upright. "You can't, he was terminated," his lawyer barked. "He was fired after accessing files marked confidential, which relate directly to this case," Anna replied. "That makes him a whistleblower, and under Georgia state law, whistleblower protections apply in cases of public interest." Judge Harper nodded. "I'll allow it." Jacob took the stand. His voice was steady. The footage was doctored. "I didn't say anything at first because I needed my job, but when I saw what they did to that little girl's mother, I couldn't stay quiet." Anna looked up at him. "What did you see?" "I saw manipulation," he said, "and fear. We were told to follow orders. But the truth? Danielle Bell never entered that room." A silence heavier than concrete settled over the courtroom. The judge exhaled slowly. "The court will recess for final review. But let me be clear, this testimony changes everything." As Anna stepped down from the bench, she passed Renshaw's table. He muttered under his breath, "You think this makes you better than me?" She stopped. "I think this makes you smaller than I thought." And with that, she walked back to her mother, whose eyes were full of tears, not of fear this time, but pride, the kind that can't be stolen, erased, or bought, only earned. By the time the court reconvened that afternoon, the gallery was standing room only. Every bench was packed with community members, reporters, law students, and even a few off-duty judges who had come out of curiosity. The whispers no longer mocked Anna Bell, they marveled. Danielle sat silently beside her daughter at the defense table. Her hand trembled slightly, but her eyes had a steadiness they hadn't held in weeks. She looked at Anna the way a mother watches a storm turn into sunlight. Across the aisle, Charles Renshaw was no longer composed. His jaw clenched as he scribbled frantic notes to his attorney. His expensive cologne couldn't mask the sour smell of fear. It wasn't just the possibility of losing the case. It was the threat of losing control over the narrative, over his employees, over his reputation. Judge Harper returned to the bench with an armful of printed documents and a tired look in his eyes. He adjusted his glasses and glanced at Anna. "I've reviewed the evidence presented this morning. The override logs, internal communications, and corroborated witness testimony raise significant questions about the credibility of the prosecution's case." He turned to Renshaw's legal team. "Would you like to respond?" Renshaw's lead attorney stood, straightening his tie. "Your Honor, we believe this entire process has spiraled into a media spectacle orchestrated by a child. While touching, it's not legally sound. We plan to move for a full dismissal of these documents as inadmissible, due to the method of acquisition and chain of custody." Anna stood before the judge could respond. "Your Honor, I'd like to address that." The judge nodded slowly. "Go ahead." "Oh, the evidence was not stolen. It was voluntarily given by a former employee acting under whistleblower protection. The documents were cross-verified with public records and court-accepted sources. But if they want to challenge the chain of custody, then let's do it. Let's put every piece of this under scrutiny. I'm not afraid of the truth." A quiet murmur of approval moved through the room like a ripple. Anna continued, her voice steady, almost too calm for a child. "This isn't about me, or even just my mother. This is about every person who's ever been silenced because they didn't have power, or money, or the right skin color. We didn't come here to embarrass anyone. We came here because the law is supposed to protect everyone, not just the rich." She turned to Renshaw. "You tried to bury my mother, but you forgot that some seeds grow stronger underground." The courtroom fell silent. Judge Harper cleared his throat. "Miss Bell, as I've stated before, you are not officially recognized counsel, but what you've presented is not only compelling, it's damning." He turned to the prosecution. "Given the severity of the discrepancies, and the admission of a first-hand witness, I am dismissing the charges against Danielle Bell, effective immediately." Danielle let out a sharp breath, her hands flying to her mouth. The gallery erupted in applause. Tears streaked down her cheeks as she turned to Anna and pulled her into a tight embrace. Anna didn't cry. She simply closed her eyes and held on. But Judge Harper wasn't done. "In addition, I am ordering an independent investigation into Mr. Renshaw's company for potential misconduct, including evidence tampering, wrongful termination, and intimidation of employees." Renshaw rose to protest, but the judge's gavel hit hard. "Sit down, Mr. Renshaw. You've had your turn." The applause grew louder, more defiant, until the bailiff had to calm the room. Outside the courthouse, the crowd had grown to several dozen. As Anna and Danielle stepped onto the steps, microphones and cameras swarmed them. Reporters shouted questions, flashes lit the air, but Anna held up one hand. "I don't have a press statement," she said, "because this isn't a performance, it's our life." One reporter pushed forward. "How did you know what to do? Where did you learn all this?" Anna shrugged. "The library, and watching people, and remembering what they forget." Danielle spoke then, her voice soft but powerful. "My daughter did what grown men with law degrees were too afraid to do," she told the truth. From behind the crowd, Patricia Morgan stepped forward. "And now it's time we make sure she's not alone." Later that evening, the small living room of their apartment was filled with friends and neighbors who had watched the live stream on local news. Some brought food, baked macaroni, green beans, a peach cobbler that vanished in minutes. Others just came to hug Danielle or shake Anna's hand, but not everyone was there to celebrate. At around 8:15 p.m., a black SUV pulled up to the curb. Out stepped two men in tailored suits and an older woman in a cream blouse and leather shoes. They knocked once. Danielle opened the door cautiously. "Good evening," the woman said. "I'm Margaret Holden from the Atlanta Civil Justice Foundation. We'd like to speak with Anna." Danielle blinked. She's in the back, reading." Anna appeared a second later, still holding a thick case law digest. Margaret smiled. We've reviewed your court performance, your evidence, your cross-referencing. Frankly, it's unlike anything we've seen. Columbia Law School's Youth Scholars Initiative would like to offer you an honorary placement for pre-collegiate mentorship. Anna stared at her. You mean like law school? Not quite yet, Margaret said. But you'll be learning from professors, attending symposiums, and shaping the future of legal defense. If you accept, Anna looked to her mother, whose face had gone pale. Danielle whispered, It's your choice, baby. Anna hesitated, then said, I'll go, but only if I can keep fighting for people like us. Margaret nodded. That's why we're here. After they left, the living room returned to a warm hum of chatter. Patricia sat beside Anna on the worn couch, a plate of food untouched in her lap. You've changed things, you know. No, Anna said. I just made them look. Patricia chuckled. Same thing, sometimes. Anna looked down at her calloused fingers, at the legal pad filled with scribbles and underlines. For a moment, the room around her faded. She could still hear Renshaw's voice calling her a nobody. She could still feel the weight of every time someone had said she wasn't enough. And yet here she was. And this, she knew, was only the beginning. The next morning, the air in the neighborhood felt different. People who used to walk with their heads down now greeted one another with nods, with eye contact. At the corner store, someone had taped a printout of Anna's courtroom photo to the door with the words, She stood for us. But not everyone saw her as a hero. At 6:47 a.m., Anna stepped outside, a stack of newspapers under one arm. She hadn't slept. Again. A neighbor waved, and she returned the gesture, though her mind was already elsewhere. The headlines were loud. Child legal prodigy or dangerous disruption, one asked. Another, little girl, big trouble for corporate America. She folded the pages and tossed them into the recycling bin without a word. Across town, Charles Renshaw was doing something he hadn't done in years. He was sweating in his own home. The grand office in his penthouse, once a fortress of silence and polished glass, now echoed with the sound of lawyers shouting through speakerphones. His board had called an emergency vote. Investors were backing away. Social media had turned him into a symbol of elite arrogance, and worst of all, people had stopped fearing him. He slammed his fist against the desk. This isn't over, he growled. His assistant, pale and shaking, placed a USB drive on his desk. That footage, the original security log. It's clean. Your instructions were overwritten. There's no trace. Renshaw's lips curled. Then we leak it. We spin it. We say the girl doctored the evidence. A child can't be trusted with sensitive material. But sir, she didn't even have access. She has a narrative, he snapped. And narratives can be rewritten. Back in the Bell apartment, Anna sat with Patricia Morgan, reviewing a stack of sealed envelopes. The Atlanta Civil Justice Foundation had sent scholarship paperwork. Columbia's pre-college legal program had overnighted a welcome packet. Even a publisher had reached out. You understand what this means, don't you? Patricia asked. Anna nodded slowly. They want the version of me that fits on a brochure. And do you? Anna thought about that. Only if I get to write what's inside. Danielle was quiet. She stood by the kitchen window, sipping coffee from a chipped mug, watching her daughter navigate a world that had never been designed for her. There was pride in her gaze, but also worry, a mother's worry. The kind that knew how quickly the spotlight could turn into a spotlight trap. That afternoon, a black car pulled up again. But this time, it wasn't from a foundation. It was a process server. Danielle opened the door, confused. Yes? I'm here to deliver a defamation lawsuit, the man said, handing over the envelope. Filed by Mr. Charles Renshaw. Anna stepped behind her mother. On what grounds? The man didn't answer. He just left. Danielle stared at the envelope, her hands beginning to shake. He's suing you? Patricia asked, taking the paper and scanning it. He's not challenging the ruling, he's suing for public defamation, malicious interference, and inciting public unrest? He's trying to bankrupt us, Danielle whispered. He's trying to keep you out of that program. Anna's face didn't change. Let him try. That night, Patricia made calls. Lawyers, journalists, civil rights groups. By morning, a counter-narrative was already in motion. But Anna knew the real battle wasn't in newsrooms. It would happen in court again. And this time, she'd have to play by rules written to exclude people like her. A week later, Anna sat in a borrowed blazer in front of a panel of federal mediators. Renshaw's legal team sat across from her. His attorney smirked. "Miss Bell," he said with mock politeness, "you do understand that this is not a school debate? You're being accused of defamation, of damaging a man's professional and personal reputation." "Yes," Anna said, "and I'm prepared to prove that his reputation was already damaged by himself." Gasps were muffled. She placed a folder on the table. Inside were statements from 3 former Renshaw employees, one of them a security contractor who admitted to being paid extra for private file reclassification. Another was a janitor who had been told to keep his mouth shut or lose his visa. The third was Jacob Langston, now publicly active in labor reform. Renshaw's lawyer objected. "These are hearsay." No," Anna said, flipping a page. "They're notarized affidavits, and they're corroborated by the metadata on the video files, which I might add, your client's team tried to delete." The lead mediator leaned in. "You're not a lawyer, Miss Bell, but you argue like one." "I'm not here to argue," she replied. "I'm here to remind you that the law is only as just as the people who use it." Renshaw, sitting silent until now, finally spoke. "You think you've won? You think you're different from the rest of them? You're just another poor girl with a temporary headline. People will forget you." Anna stood. "Maybe. But by then, the system that protects people like you will be weaker. And people like me will be stronger. You're not suing to win. You're suing to scare me. But I'm not afraid." "Why not?" Anna looked him in the eye. "Because you already tried to erase us once, and I made the world watch you fail." The room fell still. 2 days later, Renshaw withdrew the lawsuit. Not because he had changed, but because he realized something worse than defeat irrelevance. At home, when Danielle got the call confirming the withdrawal, she broke down. Not in sorrow, but in something deeper, older, relief. She dropped the phone, sat down on the floor, and pulled Anna into her arms. "You saved me," she whispered. "No," Anna said softly. "You survived. I just made sure they saw it." Patricia walked to the window, watching the neighborhood slowly return to its rhythm. But something had shifted. People didn't just survive anymore. They watched, they spoke, they organized. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the buildings, Anna climbed onto the fire escape and sat under the sky with her binder beside her. In the distance, the city was still noisy, still unjust. But somehow, it felt less impossible. Because sometimes, all it takes is one girl, one voice, one truth louder than fear. Annabelle stood in front of the cracked mirror in their tiny hallway, adjusting the collar of a clean white shirt someone from the neighborhood had donated last week. The blazer hung a little too long in the sleeves, but it didn't matter. Today wasn't about clothes. It was about standing her ground. Again. A month had passed since the lawsuit was withdrawn, but the ripples hadn't stopped. Renshaw's company was now under federal investigation. 3 board members had resigned, and 2 former employees had come forward with new allegations of systemic discrimination, wrongful termination, and coerced silence. Yet somehow, Anna wasn't celebrating. Not fully. Because she'd learned something important. Exposing a lie didn't mean the truth would automatically win. You had to keep defending it, every day. Patricia Morgan knocked on the doorframe gently. "Are you ready?" Anna turned. "As ready as I ever am." Danielle stepped out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her eyes lingered on Anna, then shifted to Patricia. "Are you sure this is safe? This hearing, it's bigger than the others. And these people, politicians, corporate reps, cameras everywhere." "She'll be fine," Patricia said. "They asked for her. She didn't go knocking." "They ask because they're scared," Anna added. "Not of me, but of what I represent." Danielle knelt, brushing a strand of hair away from her daughter's cheek. "Just remember, baby, you don't owe them perfection. You owe them truth. That's always been enough." Anna nodded. Then she grabbed her worn legal pad and the binder that had traveled with her through every courtroom, every late-night study session, and every accusation. The hearing was held in a government building downtown, in a polished chamber with tall ceilings and an American flag behind the podium. Members of the Atlanta City Oversight Committee were seated in a curved row, dressed in suits, their expressions guarded. Rows of seats behind them were filled with press, community leaders, activists, and a few unfamiliar faces who wore the expressions of people who weren't sure if they'd come to listen or dismiss. The chairwoman, a tall black woman in her early 60s, tapped the mic. "We are here today to review public testimony regarding legal access, systemic barriers to justice, and the events surrounding the Bell case. Our goal is to assess whether structural reforms are necessary." She looked directly at Anna. "Miss Bell, you may begin." Anna stepped up to the podium. She didn't need to clear her throat. Her voice, though young, carried easily. "My name is Anna Bell. I am 10 years old next month. I don't have a law degree. I don't have money. I don't come from power. But I know what justice feels like, or more importantly, what injustice does." She paused. "When my mother was accused of a crime she didn't commit, the system told us to wait, to trust it. But that system didn't come with protection. It came with silence. It came with paperwork that no one explained, lawyers who didn't care, and a sense that we weren't worth fighting for." A few people in the room shifted uncomfortably. "I read legal books because no one read them for us. I filed motions because no one else would. I stood up in court not because I wanted to, but because I had to." Anna reached into her binder and pulled out a thin folder. "In this file are 5 other cases I found in the last 2 weeks. 5 mothers, all women of color, all accused by powerful employers, all without proper legal defense. This isn't about one company. It's about a pattern." She looked directly at one of the city lawyers. "You said in an interview that my case was an exception, but that's only true if you close your eyes to everything else." Someone in the back clapped once before being hushed. Patricia sat a few rows behind, her heart pounding with pride. Danielle had tears on her cheeks again. Anna continued, "I'm not here to be praised. I'm here to ask, why did a child have to do this? Why was I the only one in the room willing to say, this is wrong? Why do so many people have to lose everything before they're believed?" She glanced at the chairwoman. "You say you want reform. Then start by listening. Not just today. Every day. Create systems where people aren't buried under legal fees just to prove they didn't steal a mop bucket. Fund public defenders like you fund politicians. And stop pretending justice belongs to the highest bidder." She stepped back from the mic, not out of nerves, but as if to say, "That's all, you heard me, now do something." Silence followed. A silence so complete it was almost sacred. Then the chairwoman spoke. "Miss Bell, on behalf of this panel, thank you. You reminded us that laws without courage are just paper. We will be reviewing your recommendations in full." Anna returned to her seat next to Danielle. The world didn't shift, not visibly, but something cracked, something opened. After the hearing, they stepped into the sunlight. A reporter shoved a mic forward. "Anna, will you be going into politics? Law school early? What's next?" Anna looked up, squinting at the sky. "I don't know yet," she said, "but whatever it is, I'll keep showing up." That evening, back at home, she sat on the fire escape again. The neighborhood below buzzed with a different kind of energy. Someone was playing old soul music from a porch. A boy on a bike shouted something about her being the truth. Down the block, a mural of her face had been started in chalk, unfinished but full of fire. Patricia stepped out with a glass of lemonade. "You changed them, you know," she said, sitting beside her. "No," Anna said. "They changed because they were ready. I just gave them a reason." "You're still just a kid." "I'm not just anything," Anna replied. "No one is." They sat there for a while, watching, listening, breathing. And though Anna didn't say it out loud, she knew something in her bones. This wasn't the end. It was only the end of silence. 2 weeks after the hearing, Anna Bell sat alone at the back of the public library, exactly where her journey had begun. Same cracked chair, same wobbly desk, same flickering overhead light that buzzed in the corner like a tired wasp. Her hands flipped through a thick textbook on constitutional law, annotated, borrowed, and already halfway memorized. Yet her eyes weren't reading. Not really. Not tonight. Outside, the wind whispered against the windows, and the branches of an old pecan tree scraped the glass like fingernails. The city had quieted for the evening, but inside Anna's mind, noise spun like a carousel. Interviews, press requests, hate mail, Scholarship offers, letters from strangers thanking her, begging her, warning her. It had all become too much. She closed the book and rested her head on her arms. "You okay, sweetheart?" Anna looked up. The voice came from Mrs. Delaney, the elderly librarian who had once scolded her for staying past curfew but now kept the door open late on nights she knew Anna was coming. "Just thinking," Anna said. Mrs. Delaney sat across from her with a cup of tea, pushing one forward. "You've been quiet lately, not like before." "I guess I'm tired." "That's allowed, even for giants." Anna smiled faintly but didn't answer. She traced a finger along the edge of the textbook. "Mrs. Delaney, do you think people ever forget why they started?" The woman leaned back. "All the time. That's why you write things down. Not for others. For yourself." Anna nodded slowly. Her mind drifted back to her mother, how Danielle had started smiling again, baking again, even dancing a little in the kitchen on Sunday mornings. Their case was closed, officially, but the world had opened a different door. And once opened, it refused to shut. That weekend, an invitation arrived in the mail, printed on embossed cream cardstock with gold trim. The envelope bore the seal of the State Bar Association of Georgia. Inside was a single line: "You are cordially invited to speak at our Youth Justice Summit. Keynote address." Anna turned the card over 3 times, as if expecting fine print, but there was none, just her name, and a request to show up as herself. At first, Danielle refused. "They're just using you for attention, for headlines. You don't owe them anything, baby." But Anna had looked her mother in the eyes and said, "If I don't go, they'll just fill the space with someone else. Someone who's never walked where we walked." Danielle had sighed, then kissed her on the forehead. "All right, but I'm going with you." The summit was held in a towering glass building downtown, all chrome and marble and polished marble floors that echoed with every step. As Anna and Danielle entered, people turned, some out of admiration, some out of curiosity, and a few with tight smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Backstage, Anna paced slowly, holding her notes. She didn't plan to use them. Patricia joined her, dressed in navy and pearls. "Nervous?" "A little." "Good, that means you care." Anna looked through the curtain. "What if I say the wrong thing?" "Then say it honestly." When her name was called, she walked to the podium with a grace that didn't belong to her age. No prepared script, just her voice, her truth, and the room holding its breath. "I wasn't supposed to be here," she began. "At least, that's what I was told. Not out loud, but in all the ways that matter. I was told with courtroom stares, with polite dismissals, with closed doors and closed minds. I was told to wait my turn, to grow up, to stay quiet." She looked around the room. "But injustice doesn't wait, so why should we?" She told them about her mother, about the night Danielle was arrested, about how no one expected the woman with bleach-stained clothes to have a daughter who could cross-reference criminal code sections from memory. She spoke of fear, of anger, of reading court transcripts under a broken street lamp because the library closed too early. And then she said something that landed like a stone in the chest of every adult in that room. "You all went to law school. I went to the shelter. You had mentors. I had mops and paperbacks. And yet here I am. Because justice isn't about credentials. It's about courage. And courage doesn't require a degree." Somewhere in the back, someone stood. Then another. A slow, rising wave of applause, not just for Anna's words, but for what they meant. That the future wasn't waiting. It was already here. Afterward, as the crowd filtered out and handshakes blurred into flashes, a man in a tailored suit approached. He looked vaguely familiar, something about his eyes. "Miss Bell," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Harold Bryant, Dean of the University of Georgia School of Law. I watched your hearing, all of them, actually." Anna nodded cautiously. "I want to offer you something rare," he continued. "Early admission, full tuition, no PR strings, just a seat earned, not granted." Anna didn't answer right away. She looked at Danielle, who stood a few steps behind, then back at the man. "Thank you," she said, "but I'm still deciding who I want to be, not just where I want to study." His smile faltered. Then he nodded, quietly impressed. That night, Anna sat again on the fire escape. She watched the city lights flicker in the distance, some steady, some struggling, like hearts figuring out how to beat again. Danielle stepped outside, carrying 2 cups of cocoa. She handed one over, then leaned on the railing. "You were amazing today." Anna took a sip. "Mama, do you think I'm changing too fast?" Danielle looked up at the stars. "Number, I think the world's finally catching up to who you've been all along." They sat in silence, and for the first time in a long time, Anna didn't feel like a voice against a wall. She felt like a beginning. The door creaked softly as Anna stepped into the battered community legal clinic on the east side of Atlanta. It was housed in a converted laundromat that still bore the ghost of its old signage. The front desk was little more than a fold-out table. The waiting chairs were mismatched donations from old churches and shuttered cafes. But the room was full of need, of questions no one had time to answer, of people used to being told, "Not today." Anna set her backpack down next to the radiator. Inside it were 3 law books, a half-eaten sandwich, and a manila folder with a list of pro bono cases that Patricia had slipped to her weeks ago. She was just a volunteer. A girl with no license, no credentials, just the weight of 1 courtroom victory and the shadow of 1,000 more battles ahead. But today she wasn't here to speak on a stage. She was here to listen. "Miss Bell," a timid voice called. "They said you could help?" Anna turned. A woman stood in the doorway, clutching the hand of a young boy with tired eyes and shoes too big for his feet. "Tell me what's going on," Anna said gently. The woman's name was Marlene Diaz. Her son, Joel, had been accused of theft at school. The principal wanted to expel him. No trial, no explanation, just out. The boy had said he didn't do it. The other kids had blamed him because he was quiet and brown, and someone had to take the fall. Anna listened. She asked for dates, details, who said what and when. Her pencil never stopped moving. When Marlene finished, tears slipping into the folds of her scarf, Anna looked at Joel. "Did you do it?" she asked softly. Joel shook his head. "I was in the bathroom when it happened, but they said I looked guilty." Anna leaned back. "You remember what time you went in?" "Right after recess. There's a janitor named Greg. He saw me go in." Anna's lips tightened. She reached for her phone. By 2 p.m., she was at the school, sitting stiffly across from the principal, a man named Clarence Rickman who wore a gold pinky ring and kept calling her, "Young lady." "Mr. Rickman," Anna said, her voice calm but pointed, "I've reviewed the school's handbook, and nowhere does it say a student can be expelled based on suspicion alone." Rickman scoffed. "Are you here as legal counsel? Because if so, I'd like to see your bar number." "I'm here as someone who understands due process," Anna replied. "And if you'd like to risk the media learning that a school is expelling Latino boys without evidence, I can absolutely make that call." Rickman went pale. Greg the janitor confirmed Joel's alibi. The boy was reinstated. No apology, just silence and avoidance. Outside the school gates, Marlene hugged Anna tight. "How do you know all this? You're just a girl." Anna smiled. "I read a lot of books, and I don't like bullies." Later that night, back in her apartment, Danielle stirred a pot of stew while Anna read on the couch. The television played softly in the background news of another protest, another verdict, another mother's scream echoing through the streets. "Why does it never stop?" Anna asked. Danielle didn't look up. "Because some people benefit from things staying broken." Anna closed the book. "Then maybe I was born to fix things." Danielle walked over and kissed the top of her daughter's head. "Then I'm glad you were born." A knock sounded at the door. Anna opened it to find Harold Bryant again, the dean from the university. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said. "May I come in?" She nodded. Once inside, he handed her an envelope. "I watched what you did for that boy today," he said. "We've never offered this before to a non-student, but—" Anna opened the envelope. Inside was a formal invitation to participate in a year-long mentorship under the Justice Reinvestment Program, a new initiative allowing aspiring legal advocates to work alongside professors and trial attorneys, even before law school officially began. "You'll be shadowing real cases, learning the system from the inside. It won't be easy." "I don't want easy," Anna said. "I want honest." Bryant looked impressed again. "You remind me of someone I knew. A girl I went to school with, bright, stubborn, always quoting the Bill of Rights like scripture." "What happened to her?" Anna asked. "She became a federal judge." Anna grinned. "Guess I better catch up." That night, Anna returned to the library where it had all started. She sat in her corner and pulled out the first of many case files she'd received that week. Theft, unpaid wages, immigration violations, denied benefits. All real, all urgent, all people with stories no one wanted to hear. And yet, as she flipped through the documents, something stirred inside her. Not exhaustion, not fear, something fiercer. Resolve. I am my mother's lawyer, she whispered aloud to the empty room. But I won't stop there. She thought of the billionaires who had sneered, the courtrooms where her voice had been a surprise, the boy who had been saved by one question, the dean who had dared to offer her a seat at the table. And she knew this was just the beginning. The morning fog hung thick over Atlanta's old courthouse, wrapping the marble steps in a ghostly hush. Anna stood beneath its towering columns, her fingers curled tightly around the strap of her worn leather bag. Inside were the first legal documents she had ever drafted, handwritten, cross-referenced, annotated with meticulous care. Her hair was pulled back, her clothes still thrift store clean, and yet her presence radiated something undeniable: conviction. I don't know what they'll say in there, Danielle had told her that morning, slipping a folded paper into Anna's coat pocket. But you walk in like you belong, because you do. Anna stepped through the heavy doors. Inside courtroom 6B, the atmosphere was thick with tension. A wrongful eviction case, an elderly black veteran named Charles Langston, forced out of his apartment without due notice. No warning, no hearing. The landlord had declared it abandoned. Anna had read every statute surrounding Georgia's tenant laws, and nowhere did it say a man with VA records and utility bills in his name could be tossed into the street like garbage. Who's representing the plaintiff? The judge asked, her voice cool. Anna stood. I am, Your Honor. There was a low murmur through the room. She heard someone whisper, she's not even 30, and another snort, is this a mock trial? But the judge, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes like cold steel, leaned forward. Name? Annabelle, Your Honor. Legal trainee under the Justice Reinvestment Program, supervised by Dean Harold Bryant. The judge nodded slowly. Proceed. Anna's voice was calm but cut through the courtroom like a scalpel. Your Honor, Mr. Langston was evicted illegally, without 30 days' notice or an official complaint filed through the housing court. The defendant's actions violate both Section 44750 and federal protections granted to military veterans under the HUD-VASH program. The landlord's lawyer, a man in a Navy suit too tight across the stomach, smirked. With all due respect, Your Honor. Miss Bell is a student. The judge raised a hand. She's quoting statutes. You're calling her a student. I'll allow her argument. Continue, Miss Bell. Anna presented surveillance photos, testimonies from neighbors, and a signed lease agreement that had never been terminated in writing. She concluded with a simple statement. What happened here wasn't just a breach of contract, it was a violation of dignity. The courtroom was silent. The judge ruled in their favor. Full restitution, immediate reinstatement of housing, court costs covered. Outside, Charles Langston wiped a tear from his eye. You're young, but you carry something real. I just carry what I've seen, Anna said quietly. Word spread. The girl lawyer from the East Side. No degree, no suit, no office, but somehow she kept winning. That afternoon, a black Mercedes SUV pulled up outside the clinic. Out stepped Franklin Wallace III, the billionaire real estate mogul who had mocked Anna on live television just weeks earlier. He didn't come alone. 2 security guards flanked him, and behind them, a thin woman in a navy pencil skirt tapped her iPad furiously. Anna was in the back, sorting forms, when Danielle hissed, "You have company, rich company." Anna wiped her hands on her jeans and walked out. Franklin's eyes swept over the clinic's peeling walls, the sagging ceiling fan, the people waiting on folding chairs. So this is where you hide. I don't hide, Anna replied evenly. I work. I saw the broadcast, he said. And the courthouse win this morning. You made quite the impression on my board. Anna folded her arms. I don't do impressions. I do the law. He ignored her and turned to Danielle. Is there a private room we can speak in? Danielle pointed to the supply closet. Inside the cramped space, surrounded by boxes of paper towels and printer ink, Franklin closed the door. Let me be direct. My firm is being sued for wrongful foreclosure. We need optics. Someone with a clean face, a compelling story, a poor girl done good kind of thing. Come speak at our next shareholder conference. Anna stared at him. You want me to be your mascot? I'm offering $10,000 in exposure. I'm not a billboard, and I don't work for people who throw others out of their homes. Franklin narrowed his eyes. You'd rather stay in this dump, helping criminals and losers? Anna stepped forward, her voice suddenly low. Do you know what the word loser means to someone who sleeps in their car but still shows up for court? Do you know what it feels like to be 12 years old, watching your mother beg a judge for rent extension? I do, and that's why I'm here. Franklin studied her for a long second. Then he laughed coldly. Suit yourself. Enjoy your kingdom of fleas. When he left, Anna sank into a chair. Her hands were trembling, but not from fear. From something deeper resolve, again, burning steady. Later that evening, as she sipped chamomile tea with Danielle, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She picked up. Is this Miss Bell? Yes. This is Officer Raymond Brooks. I'm calling from Macon County. We've got a situation. A young black girl was picked up for shoplifting. Says her name is Taylor Bell. Says you're her cousin. Anna's blood ran cold. Taylor. She hadn't seen her since last Christmas, when Taylor was still bright-eyed, scribbling dreams in a spiral notebook and asking if Anna could teach her about cases. I'm on my way, Anna said, grabbing her coat. Danielle called after her. You can't save them all. But Anna's voice rang back down the hall, strong and steady. I can try. The county jail in Macon was a faded relic of old brick and fluorescent lights, the kind of place that seemed to trap the very scent of fear in its walls. Anna parked her car beneath a flickering street lamp, her fingers tightening around the steering wheel for a second longer than necessary. She took a deep breath, then stepped into the chill of the evening air. Inside, the front desk officer didn't even look up at first. I'm here to see Taylor Bell, Anna said, her voice calm but carrying. The officer, a middle-aged man with a buzz cut and eyes that had seen too much, looked up. Relation? She's my cousin. I'm her legal representative. He squinted at her, unconvinced. She's a minor. We need an adult guardian. I'm her legal representative, Anna repeated, pulling a folded paper from her coat pocket. Taylor's notarized temporary custody letter, signed last summer when her mother had gone to rehab. And I know her rights. He held the paper, scanned it slowly, then gave a small grunt of approval. Wait here. A few moments later, a steel door buzzed open, and Anna followed a deputy down a narrow hall lined with scratched beige paint and surveillance cameras. The holding room was small and cold. Taylor sat curled up in a plastic chair, arms wrapped around her knees, her once vibrant braids now dull and tangled. Her hoodie was oversized, her socks mismatched, and her eyes, those big, hopeful eyes, looked tired. When she saw Anna, something flickered. Shame, hope, maybe both. I didn't do it, Taylor whispered. Anna dropped to a crouch beside her. What happened? They said I stole a necklace from the store. But I didn't, I swear. I was with my friend, Nia. She dared me to try it on and walk toward the door. I did, but then I gave it back. I swear I gave it back. Oh, did anyone see you give it back? Taylor hesitated. I don't know. The clerk was yelling. I panicked. Anna closed her eyes briefly, then stood and turned toward the window. They're charging you with attempted theft? Taylor nodded. Anna's jaw tightened. You're not going to juvie for a dare. She turned to the deputy behind the glass and asked for the arresting documents. She scanned them quickly, her mind parsing through precedent, minor statutes, intent to steal clauses. A shoplifting charge required clear intention to deprive the store of property. Taylor didn't leave the premises, didn't conceal the item, didn't even cross the doorframe. Back in the car, Taylor hugged her backpack close to her chest. Am I in trouble? Anna looked over at her. You made a stupid decision. But no, you're not in trouble. Not with me. They drove in silence for a while until Taylor asked softly, Why do you still help me? Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it, Anna said, and because your story's not over yet. The next morning, Anna showed up at the local courthouse with Taylor in tow. Her jacket was freshly pressed, her hair tied neatly, and her court packet prepared. In front of the juvenile intake judge, she laid out the facts with clinical precision. No theft occurred. No item was removed from the store. No concealment. No deception. No flight. A child's mistake is not a criminal offense. It's a teaching moment. The judge, a woman with sharp features and a tired look, eyed Anna carefully. You're not even a licensed attorney. I'm working under Dean Bryant's program. I have approval to represent in juvenile diversion hearings. You have a lot of gall, the judge said, but her eyes weren't unkind. I have a lot of reason, Anna replied. We teach kids to dream, but we punish them the moment they misstep. If that's justice, then it's a rigged game. After a pause, the judge leaned back. Charges dismissed, but the girl stays in school, and she checks in with a counselor once a week. Understood? Anna looked at Taylor, who nodded vigorously. Outside the courthouse, Taylor wrapped her arms around Anna tightly. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, Anna whispered. Be better. That afternoon, Anna returned to the community legal clinic to find a surprise waiting for her. Sitting in the cramped waiting area was Franklin Wallace's assistant, the woman with the sleek bun and tablet who had once flanked the billionaire like a shadow. But today she wasn't holding a device. She was holding a letter. Anna approached slowly. Did you get lost? The assistant stood, face composed. Mr. Wallace asked me to deliver this. She handed Anna a thick envelope and left without another word. Inside was an invitation to the Wallace Foundation's annual gala black tie, press-covered, and held at the Waldorf Hotel. A handwritten note was tucked in. You said no to exposure. Maybe it's time you used it for someone else. F.W. Anna stared at it for a long moment. What's that? Danielle asked, peeking over her shoulder. A ticket to the Lion's Den. You gonna go? Anna folded the invitation. If I do, it's not to smile. It's to speak. That night, as she sat by her window, Taylor snoring lightly in the next room, Anna pulled out one of her old law books, the one she used to memorize under streetlights when the power went out. She flipped to a familiar chapter and began to read aloud, not to study, but to remember. Justice, real justice, wasn't a courtroom win. It was seeing someone like Taylor walk free. It was facing down giants like Wallace with nothing but truth. It was holding the line even when your hands shook. She touched the folded invitation again, then looked out into the night. The city didn't know it yet, but Annabelle was coming. Anna stood before the full-length mirror in the community center's single-stall bathroom, the gala invitation lying open on the sink behind her like a challenge she couldn't ignore. Her reflection stared back. Plain dress borrowed from Danielle, hair pulled into a simple low bun, second-hand heels she'd once worn to a funeral. No jewelry, no designer clutch. Just the stubborn presence of a girl who had crawled out of nowhere, holding a fire too fierce to extinguish. She wasn't here to impress. She was here to disrupt. Across town, the Waldorf Hotel glittered like something out of a dream. Marble floors, chandeliers like falling stars, valet attendants who barely looked at the guests but read them nonetheless. When Anna stepped out of the cab, a few heads turned. A black girl with rough hands and thrift store elegance didn't belong in the company of silk gowns and engraved cufflinks. She walked past them like she belonged anyway. Inside the ballroom, the air was thick with wealth conversation dripped with laughter that didn't quite reach the eyes. Waiters moved through the crowd with practiced grace, silver trays balanced on fingertips like ballerinas on point. Anna didn't search for Franklin Wallace. She didn't have to. He found her. He stood near the stage, surrounded by board members and politicians who treated him like he was the second coming of capital. When he saw her, he smiled, amused, curious, the way someone might watch a stray dog wander into a country club. Well, he said, voice smooth like aged bourbon, you actually came. I said I wouldn't waste exposure on myself. I never said I wouldn't use yours. A flicker of something darkened his eyes' surprise, maybe a sliver of respect. You've got guts, I'll give you that. I've got reasons, she said. You built your empire on philanthropy, Wallace. But your hands aren't clean. Your company bulldozed an entire block in Vine City last year. You called it redevelopment. I call it eviction. He laughed softly. Is this your speech? At my gala? Anna didn't blink. I'm not here to speak for applause. I'm here so someone finally hears the truth. Wallace's smile faded slightly. You think the crowd will listen to you over me? I don't care if they do, but I know you will. Before he could respond, a voice called through the sound system, announcing the start of the evening's program. Anna took her seat near the back, her palms clammy, her heart hammering. When they called her name, Community Hero nominee, Annabelle, a ripple of surprise moved through the audience. People craned their necks. Most had never heard of her. She walked slowly to the stage. The microphone was too tall. She adjusted it. Then she looked out at the sea of polite faces and politely raised eyebrows. "I'm my mother's lawyer," she began, the same sentence that had once cracked a courtroom in half. "And I'm a lawyer for kids who get arrested because they panicked, for mothers who don't speak English and don't get interpreters, for men who lost their jobs because they didn't shake the right hands." She paused, letting the silence settle. "I memorized the Constitution sitting on a plastic crate while my mother scrubbed hotel bathrooms at night. I read case law by flashlight. I didn't come from Harvard or Yale. I came from eviction notices and soup kitchens. People were shifting now. Some uncomfortable, some attentive. I'm not here tonight because I belong in this room. I'm here because this room doesn't know how many people it forgets." And then she told them about Taylor, about the wrongful evictions, about a local senior veteran whose benefits were denied until she filed an appeal on his behalf and won. One case at a time, she painted a picture not of herself, but of a broken system stitched together by quiet fighters. When she finished, there was no applause at first, just breath held too long. Then, scattered clapping, uncertain but real. She stepped down from the stage and headed for the door. She didn't wait for handshakes. She didn't need them. But Wallace followed her. "You made a show of it," he said, his voice lower now. "I made a point," she replied. "I could help you. Fund your clinic. Expand your work." Anna turned, her expression unreadable. "Why would you do that?" "Because you're effective," he said simply, "and because if you're going to fight me, I'd rather you did it inside the ring than out." She looked at him for a long moment. "I'll take your help," she said, "but not your silence, not your leash. You don't get to control how I speak." Wallace nodded, half amused, half annoyed. "Just remember, this world doesn't bend easily." Anna smiled, tired but unyielding. "Then I'll keep pressing." That night, back in her small apartment above the laundromat, she found Taylor asleep on the couch with a book on her chest. Danielle was in the kitchen reheating soup, humming off-key to Marvin Gaye. Anna sat by the window, letting the city wash over her in quiet rhythm. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt ready. There was more to uncover. Bigger things, deeper rot. And she had just opened the first door. She didn't know it yet, but tomorrow, someone would leave an envelope under her office door. A sealed affidavit, a name she hadn't heard in years, and the first clue in a story that would turn everything she thought she knew upside down. Justice was calling again, and this time, it would come wrapped in betrayal. The envelope was plain, no return address, no handwriting, only a red wax seal like something from another era. Anna found it slipped under the office door just after sunrise, resting neatly on the old doormat like a silent messenger. She stood frozen, her fingers hovering above it for a long moment. Then, she picked it up and carried it to her desk like it was a lit candle that could burn her if tilted wrong. Taylor was still asleep on the couch, curled beneath an old knitted throw. Danielle was already gone, likely at the shelter volunteering her Saturday mornings again. The apartment was quiet, save for the low hum of the city waking outside. Anna broke the seal. Inside, a single sheet of heavy ivory paper, folded once. No signature, no letterhead, only 6 typed lines in courier font. "The case against your mother wasn't a mistake. Look into James Elwood. He buried the evidence. Start with the property transfer from July 1999. It was never about theft, it was about silence." Anna's breath hitched. James Elwood, a name she hadn't spoken in years. He was the city's former assistant district attorney, the one who had pushed hardest for her mother's sentencing. The man who'd looked her in the eye at age 10 and told her, "Some things are just inevitable." Her hands trembled. For years, she had believed her mother's trial was stacked, unfair but not rigged, not corrupted at the source. She stared at the message. Then she reread it, 5 times. The words didn't change, but her understanding of her mother's imprisonment twisted into something darker, heavier. Silence. They hadn't punished her mother for stealing a bracelet. They'd silenced her. But why? Anna didn't wait. She changed into jeans and a dark jacket, stuffed the note into her inside pocket, and headed straight for the county records archive. The old building smelled like paper, bleach, and time. It was staffed mostly by retirees who didn't look twice when Anna requested property transfers from July 1000, $999. The records librarian, a wiry woman named Marjorie, shuffled over with 2 dusty boxes and set them down with a thud. Anna sifted through the files quickly, methodically, pulling dates, cross-referencing with court case numbers. And then she found an oddly sealed transaction filed under a shell company, Halifax Development Corp. The deed had been transferred from a private owner to Halifax for $1, a near zero price that made no sense on paper. The previous owner? Eleanor Bell, her mother. Anna blinked. Her mother had never mentioned owning anything. They'd lived in public housing her whole childhood. She checked the property details again. It was a small plot of land, barely 1/3 of an acre on the west side of town. But location was everything. Today, that parcel would be worth millions. Because sitting on it now was a Wallace Corp business center. A storm gathered in Anna's chest. Her mother had owned land. Someone had wanted it. And someone had made her disappear to get it. Anna snapped photos of every document, then went home. Her mind raced with questions. How had her mother acquired the land? Why hadn't she told Anna? Why had no lawyer ever brought it up in court? She needed help. She called Marcus, a journalist she trusted, a former client, now a fierce independent reporter always chasing the smell of rot. By the time he arrived, she'd already printed out the documents and laid them across her kitchen table like puzzle pieces. Marcus leaned in, eyebrows raised, scanning the papers in silence. After a long moment, he whistled low. "This isn't just shady," he muttered. "This is a land grab wrapped in a criminal conviction." "I want to go public," Anna said. Marcus shook his head. "You need more. You need Elwood himself. Without him, it's just suspicion." "I'll get him," Anna said quietly. "But I need you to protect the trail. If I go after Elwood now, someone's going to try to erase everything." "I'll back it up," Marcus said. "I'll keep copies on encrypted servers. But Anna," he met her eyes, "if you go down this road, there's no turning back." "I've been walking this road since I was 10, she said. "I just didn't know where it led." That night, she visited the west side. The land once owned by her mother had become a gleaming building with mirrored glass and steel beams. She stood across the street, the wind cold on her face, and stared up at the company name etched into the marble, Wallace Corp Innovation Hub. A security guard eyed her through the glass doors but didn't move. Anna stood there for a long time, then turned and walked home. Her mind wasn't on revenge. It was on truth. On all the quiet ways justice had been stolen from people like her mother without anyone ever noticing. When she reached the front steps, Taylor was waiting. "I heard you moving around this morning," the girl said. "Something happened?" Anna nodded. "I think I found the reason they locked up your grandmother." Taylor's eyes widened. "Was it about the bracelet?" "No," Anna said softly. "It was about land, and secrets, and power." Taylor looked down. "Are you going to fix it?" "I'm going to try," Anna replied. "And I'm going to need your help." Taylor didn't hesitate. "You have it." Anna gave her a tired smile and opened the door. Tomorrow, she would find James Elwood. Tomorrow, she would make him speak. But tonight, she allowed herself one small, radical thing. She hoped. The next morning came wrapped in gray clouds, the sky brooding with the weight of unspoken things. Anna stood in front of the towering courthouse, a building she knew better than her own reflection. Her coat clung to her shoulders, damp from a light drizzle, but she barely noticed. Her eyes were fixed on the man exiting the building, James Elwood. Even now, the name made her chest tighten. He hadn't changed much. Late 60s now, silver hair slicked back, tailored suit hugging his frame like the years had only made him more sure of himself. But Anna saw through it the rehearsed gait, the forced smile to passers-by. She saw a man running out of time, and she planned to meet him at the finish line. "Elwood," she said, voice cutting through the morning air like a blade. He turned, eyes scanning her face. Confusion first, then recognition. A flicker of irritation passed over him, almost hidden, but not quite. "You're Anna Bell," he said. "Didn't recognize you, all grown up now." "I'm my mother's lawyer." That caught him. His eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" 5 minutes. He scoffed. "I'm busy." "You weren't too busy to destroy my mother's life." He started to turn away. "If you walk off," she said firmly, "I'll release what I know. Halifax, July 1999. Eleanor Bell's property. Your name's all over it." He froze. For a second, the wind carried nothing but the sound of distant sirens. Then he turned back slowly, jaw tight. "Follow me," he muttered. They walked in silence to a nearby cafe, old, quiet, half-empty. Elwood sat near the back, as far from the windows as possible. Anna took the seat opposite him, heart pounding but face steady. "You have 5 minutes," he said, placing his phone on the table like a weapon. "I know about the land," she said. "I know about Halifax development and how you forced my mother to transfer the deed under duress. I have records, deeds, transaction ledgers. Her trial wasn't about theft. It was a cover." "Ugh." He didn't blink. "You're digging into things you don't understand. Then explain them." He leaned back, exhaling through his nose. "Your mother was never meant to go to prison. She was supposed to settle, take the payout, disappear. She didn't." "No," he said, eyes distant now. "She didn't." She spoke up. To the press. To a pastor. To a few community leaders. She called it a land theft. Said a white-run shell company conned her. She refused to sign the final release. Anna's voice dropped. "So you made her disappear another way." "I didn't make her do anything," he snapped. "She had a public defender. She pled guilty. She was scared, and she didn't understand what was happening. She was stubborn," he said flatly. "And stubborn people in poor neighborhoods don't win lawsuits against powerful men." Silence fell. Anna's fists curled under the table. "But you didn't just take land," she said. "You took her future, mine, Taylor's, and you buried it with signatures and silence." Elwood didn't answer. He simply stood. "You're not the first to come knocking. But let me be clear, Miss Bell. You try to drag me into a courtroom and you'll find I have more friends in robes than you do in pews." He turned and left. Anna sat there, fists unclenching slowly. The air felt colder now, but something deeper than rage had taken root. Certainty. When she returned home, Marcus was waiting outside her apartment building, looking impatient and damp. She tossed the cafe receipt onto his lap. "He admitted everything," she said. Marcus flipped it over, reading her scribbled notes. "You recorded it?" "Number." He was careful. "But I have enough for a subpoena. The threat alone might rattle the right cages." "Anna, if you go public with this—" "I'm not going public," she interrupted. "Not yet. I'm going strategic." She opened the door. Taylor greeted her with a tired smile. "Was it him?" the girl asked. Anna nodded. Taylor looked down. "What happens now?" "Now," Anna said, "we find the people he bribed. The judge, the notary, the city clerk. We break their silence one by one." Later that night, Anna spread a city map across the table. Each name she'd collected got pinned with red threads stretching between them. Judges, attorneys, clerks, developers. The corruption had roots, and those roots twisted back decades. Danielle stepped in from work, setting down her bag. She glanced at the map and the documents taped beside it. "You look like you're building a case," she said softly. "I am," Anna replied. "This time, no one's going to bury it. You're risking everything." Anna nodded. So did Mom. The three women stood around the table, a quiet alliance. Across town, Elwood poured himself a glass of scotch and stared out his office window. His phone buzzed once, an unknown number. He didn't answer. Outside, the city moved as if none of it mattered. But in one small apartment, the storm was already brewing. Justice, real justice, was no longer a myth. It had a name now. Annabelle. The following morning, Anna rose before the sun. Her body was exhausted, but her mind had never felt more awake. She moved quietly through the apartment, careful not to wake Taylor or Danielle. As she stepped onto the fire escape to catch the first light, she carried with her an old notebook, the same one her mother had once used to track every court date, every letter sent, every door slammed in her face. Anna flipped through the fragile pages. Her mother's handwriting danced like a whisper across them, some lines smudged by time or tears. But one phrase appeared again and again in the margins, always underlined, always circled. "Truth waits, but it never dies." Today, Anna was going to test that truth. By 8 a.m., she was in front of the county clerk's office. Inside, she requested access to property transaction records from 1999 to 2001. The young woman behind the counter raised an eyebrow but said nothing. 10 minutes later, Anna was flipping through microfiche reels and digitized scans, pulling names, dates, addresses, every single document related to the Halifax Development Corporation. And there it was, Eleanor Bell's property transfer, stamped and filed on the 12th of July, 1999. But what caught her attention wasn't just the forged signature. It was the notary stamp. Rebecca Sanderson, she murmured. She remembered that name. It had appeared in the files of another victim Anna had helped last year, a woman whose house had been taken for redevelopment and turned into a luxury condo. She wrote it down. Back at the apartment, Taylor was making breakfast while Danielle read the morning paper. Anna laid the printouts on the table. "We have our first crack," she said. Rebecca Sanderson notarized at least 5 property transfers for Halifax. Every single one belonged to a low-income black family. Danielle leaned over the table. "If you're right, then she's either a pawn or she's in on it." "I'm betting the latter," Anna replied. "And if we can prove she knowingly validated forged signatures, she could lose her license or worse." "Do you want me to reach out to the families?" Taylor asked. "Yes," Anna said, grateful. "Start with the ones still living in the city. If any of them are willing to talk, I want statements, dates, anything they remember about the transfer process." By noon, they had a working list. Marcus dropped by later with coffee and a flash drive. "I found something," he said, sliding it into Anna's laptop. An old campaign donation log from 2000. Elwood donated 20 grand to a judge named Harold Briggs. "Guess who presided over your mother's case?" Anna didn't even blink. "Harold Briggs." "Bingo." Anna exhaled through her nose, steadying herself. "We build the web, we connect the dots, then we tighten the net." Over the next week, the apartment became a war room. Taylor, usually quiet, emerged as a relentless researcher. Danielle brought in old legal contacts. Marcus pulled favors from his days in journalism. They interviewed families, digitized old letters, cross-checked news archives. Bit by bit, the pattern emerged. Anna visited one woman, Mrs. Laverne Hill, whose story echoed her mother's like a ghost. The elderly woman clutched Anna's hand as she recalled the day a man in a suit and a notary told her to sign or lose everything. "They said if I didn't sell, the city would take it anyway. They brought a form already filled out, told me it was standard. I didn't even get a copy." Anna recorded every word. "I remember the woman who stamped it," Laverne added. "White, tall, thin, pretty, in that sharp kind of way. She wore a red scarf." Anna nodded. "Rebecca Sanderson. That's the name." Back in her apartment that night, Anna collapsed onto the couch. Her eyes burned from reading. Her ears rang with voices, victims, allies, ghosts of memory. She thought of her mother's voice, calm and clear in the old voicemail Anna kept saved on her phone. "Don't ever stop asking questions, baby girl. Even if the answers hurt." She hadn't stopped, and she wasn't going to. The next morning, Anna sent the first formal notice to the State Bar Association. Attached were transcripts, documents, and a petition to investigate Judge Briggs for conflicts of interest. She CC'd 3 reporters, 2 local, 1 national. By the afternoon, her phone lit up with the first call. "This is Melanie Howard with the New York Tribune. We received your materials. We'd like to run a preliminary feature on your mother's story. Are you available to speak on the record?" Anna looked across the room at the photo of her mother framed and quiet on the bookshelf. "Yes," she said. "I'm ready." That night, the article went live, titled "Buried Deeds: One Daughter's Fight to Uncover a City's Secret." It opened with a photo of Eleanor Bell in her garden, holding a pot of marigolds. The story traveled faster than Anna expected. Within hours, messages poured in. Former neighbors, retired attorneys, community advocates, people who had seen what happened but never had the proof or the courage. But now Anna had both. James Elwood saw the article too. He stood alone in his penthouse, whiskey glass trembling in his hand. As he scrolled through the article, one name stared back at him in bold print: Rebecca Sanderson under investigation for professional misconduct. A storm was coming. He could feel it. But Anna Bell wasn't waiting for the storm. She was riding it. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid. The city never quite slept, but that night, it held its breath. The article had struck like lightning. In living rooms and legal offices across the state, Eleanor Bell's name was spoken again, no longer as a whisper, but as a warning. And at the heart of it all was Anna, the daughter who refused to be silent. At 6 a.m., Anna was already at her desk, coffee gone cold beside her. She stared at the stack of affidavits they had gathered. Each was a piece of the puzzle. Notarized deeds with mismatched signatures, letters from developers that contradicted legal records, and emails Marcus had uncovered that hinted at an internal memo system between Halifax executives and Judge Briggs's office. There was a knock on the door. Danielle entered, a quiet look on her face. "You should see this," she said, handing over her phone. On the screen was a live stream. Outside Elwood's corporate building, a group of protesters had gathered. Homemade signs waved in the wind. Justice for Eleanor. No more stolen homes. Elwood knew. "They're calling it the Bell Rebellion," Danielle said softly. Anna blinked. "My mother would have hated the attention, but she would have fought like hell to keep it going," Danielle said. Taylor entered next with a document in hand. "You need to read this. One of our anonymous tips just came through. It's a scanned letter, dated 2001, from Elwood to the City Redevelopment Office, personally requesting fast-track processing for all Halifax acquisitions. It names 5 families, including your mother's." Anna took the paper, her fingers trembling. The handwriting was unmistakably his. Neat, precise, cold. "This is enough to trigger a hearing," she whispered. "Already working on the submission." Taylor nodded. By mid-morning, news trucks began arriving outside their apartment building. Anna refused all interviews, but through the blinds, she could see how quickly the story was growing. One outlet dubbed her the street lawyer. Another simply called her the girl who remembered. That afternoon, as Danielle coordinated schedules and Taylor emailed the state attorney's office, Marcus returned from the courthouse. "I went down to pull additional transcripts," he said, "but you're not going to believe who I saw there." Anna raised an eyebrow. "James Elwood, personally, talking to Briggs." "What?" Anna said, standing. "They didn't see me, but they looked shaken. Elwood isn't used to this kind of attention. He's worried the board might pull him," Danielle guessed. "Or that more people will flip," Taylor added. Anna nodded, brain already spinning. "Then we press harder. We published the full timeline, every link between Briggs, Elwood, and Sanderson. We make the system tremble." Marcus held up a flash drive, already formatted. That night, Anna uploaded the files to the Tribune's internal archive. Within hours, the editors published a follow-up exposé, The Cost of Silence. It included testimony from 2 former Halifax interns who admitted shredding documents on direct orders. It cited case numbers, land transfers, sworn statements, and it named names. Anna waited until the house was asleep before stepping out onto the fire escape again. She stared at the horizon, where distant lights shimmered above the city. Her mind drifted to the garden where her mother once knelt, tending soil with the quiet grace of someone who believed in rebirth. She wanted to believe the law would protect her, Anna whispered into the night. But it didn't. Not then. And still, Anna had chosen law not because it was flawless, but because someone had to make it mean something again. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Miss Bell," a deep voice said. "My name is Samuel Whitaker. I'm a retired judge. I read your articles. I once turned down a similar case. I didn't think I could win against Elwood's money, but I kept the file." Anna's breath caught. "You kept the file?" "Yes. It's yours if you want it." "I do," she said quickly. "Where can I meet you?" "Tomorrow, noon. I'll email the location." The line clicked. Anna stood frozen, heart racing. A judge who regretted his silence. A file that might hold the missing piece. Another fracture in the wall of silence Elwood had spent decades building. She didn't sleep that night. At exactly noon the next day, Anna arrived at an old church off Maple Street. Inside, the air smelled of dust and sunlight. At the far end of a long pew, a white-haired man sat with a manila folder on his lap. "Miss Bell," he said, standing to shake her hand. "Your mother came to me once. I remember her eyes. Fierce, even when she cried." Anna nodded, tears threatening to rise. She said, "They can take my house, but not my daughter. I didn't fight hard enough." He handed her the folder. Inside were notes, photos, Witness logs. A memo that proved Elwood had offered campaign contributions in exchange for favorable rulings. I couldn't use it back then, Judge Whitaker said. But you can now. Anna closed the folder with reverence. Thank you, she said, voice low. Outside the church, the air felt new again, lighter, and for the first time, Anna allowed herself a moment of hope, because the truth was no longer waiting. It was walking, loud, unafraid, and it had Anna Bell's name written all over it. By dawn the next day, the city was buzzing with tension. Anna's phone hadn't stopped vibrating since 5 a.m. calls from reporters, lawyers, distant relatives she hadn't spoken to in years, but she ignored them all. Her attention was on one thing, the folder Judge Whitaker had given her. It was more than a missing puzzle piece. It was dynamite. Downstairs, the team had gathered around the kitchen table, coffee cups, notepads, screens glowing with maps, case documents, and surveillance reports. Taylor had pinned every known transaction between Halifax and the redevelopment office on the wall, using colored strings and yellow notes like a detective hunting a serial killer. Look at this, Taylor said, pointing to a 2007 purchase order. This property was sold for $38,000 5 days after Eleanor Bell filed her last appeal. Anna's jaw tightened. And look who signed the expedited approval. She flipped a page. Judge Briggs. Marcus rubbed his temples. That's not just a coincidence. That's orchestrated theft. Danielle leaned in. What if we go public with the full case before the hearing? All of it. Documents, audio, names. Risky, Taylor said. They'll try to discredit us. Say it's emotional manipulation. Anna stood slowly. Her eyes were burning, not from lack of sleep, but from the rising heat in her chest. Let them. This isn't about us anymore. It's about every family who lost their home, their voice, their dignity. We shine a light so blinding that even Elwood can't hide behind his lawyers. Marcus nodded. I'll finish the timeline edit and forward it to all major outlets. Danielle tapped her laptop. I'll contact the whistleblower network. Taylor picked up his phone. And I'll make sure our live stream is secure. They worked like that for hours, each of them moving with the kind of urgency that only comes when the end is near, and you're racing to meet justice before it's buried again. By mid-afternoon, Anna had updated the Tribune with everything from Judge Whitaker's folder. The editor called her within minutes. This is explosive, he said. It implicates not just Elwood and Briggs, but 3 council members and the former city planner. Anna didn't hesitate. Run it. With my name on it. At 3 p.m., the headline went live. The Empire of Silence. How Power and Greed Bulldozed the Poor. It spread like fire, not just locally, but nationally. Television anchors discussed it in urgent tones. Political analysts speculated about resignations. Civil rights groups began organizing rallies. And at the center of it all stood Anna Bell, once a barefoot girl with dirt on her jeans. Now the voice that wouldn't bend. But by nightfall, the backlash began. Anna had just closed her laptop when the knock came sharp, quick, impatient. Danielle opened the door. A courier handed her a white envelope with gold trim. The letterhead read, Whitmore and Latimer Legal Defense, on behalf of Mr. James Elwood. It was a lawsuit, defamation, intentional harm, request for injunction. Anna stared at the document, emotionless. They're scared. Marcus looked up from the kitchen. So they're suing? They think they can silence us through fear, Anna said. But they've forgotten one thing. What's that? Taylor asked. She met his gaze evenly. I'm my mother's daughter. The next day, Anna walked into the courthouse not as a defendant, but as a witness. The state had opened an emergency ethics inquiry into Judge Briggs. The subpoena was already issued, and the evidence was mounting by the hour. As she took her seat on the witness stand, the room hushed. The prosecutor, a stern woman in her 60s, adjusted her glasses. State your name. Annabelle. Occupation? Law student, legal advocate, and the daughter of Eleanor Bell. Do you swear to tell the truth? I do. And then the questions came slow, methodical, each one chipping away at the wall of power that had once seemed untouchable. Anna answered with clarity and poise, citing dates, page numbers, and legal precedents like a seasoned professional. At one point, the prosecutor held up a photo. It was Eleanor, kneeling beside her community garden. Her face tired, her hands muddy, but her eyes determined. "Do you recognize this woman?" "Yes," Anna said. "That's my mother. She taught me that the law is supposed to protect people like her, but it didn't. So now, I protect others the way it failed to protect her." In the gallery, people murmured. At the back of the room, James Elwood sat still, his jaw clenched, his gaze dark. But even he couldn't ignore the tide turning against him. After the hearing, Anna stepped outside to a sea of microphones and cameras. She took a breath, then spoke not to the media, but to the people. "This isn't just about my mother," she said. "This is about every family who ever got a letter they couldn't understand, from a court they couldn't afford to fight, over a home they built with their own hands. I'm not here to tear anyone down. I'm here to lift others up so this never happens again." A pause. "And if you've ever felt powerless, I'm telling you now you're not. Speak, stand, push back, even if your voice shakes, especially then." The crowd erupted, and somewhere, in the quiet corners of the city where justice had once gone to die, a light flickered back on. Anna walked down the steps, not as a child of tragedy, but as a rising force, a woman who remembered and would never let the world forget. The day after her court testimony, Anna Bell found herself walking through the neighborhood her mother once fought so hard to protect. But it looked different now. There were boards on windows, weeds breaking through cracked sidewalks, and yet people were watching. Doors cracked open just enough to glimpse wide eyes, cautious hope, and whispered prayers. Word had spread. Eleanor Bell's daughter had come home, and she hadn't come alone, she brought the truth with her. Anna wasn't here for attention. She was here for restoration. She stopped in front of the old community center, once vibrant with laughter and life. It had been shuttered for years, locked behind political promises and silent court orders. But today, the padlock was rusted, hanging like a forgotten oath. She raised her hand and knocked, not expecting an answer, just honoring the ritual of return. Behind her, Marcus stepped up. "You ready to do this?" Anna turned slightly. "This isn't about readiness. It's about responsibility." Taylor arrived seconds later with 2 volunteers and a trunk full of supplies, paint, trash bags, tools. He grinned. "We're reopening it, whether the city likes it or not." Danielle followed close behind, camera in hand. "You're already trending again. Your statement from yesterday, 'If your voice shakes, speak louder,' it hit millions overnight." Anna nodded, jaw set. "Then let's give them something real to believe in." They went to work. By noon, people had joined. Some brought food, some brought stories. An elderly woman donated a box of books. One of them still had Eleanor's handwriting in the margins. Children swept the floors. Teenagers cleared brush. Someone found a bent sign that read, "Welcome to the Eleanor Bell Center." Taylor mounted it back on the gate, and for a moment, the air felt like it had years ago before betrayal. Meanwhile, trouble brewed downtown. Elwood was furious. His legal team scrambled, calling in favors, demanding retractions. But the truth had teeth now, and it had tasted blood. Judge Briggs had resigned. 2 city council members were under investigation, and subpoenas were raining down like summer thunder. At 4 p.m., Anna received a call. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hello?" A man's voice smooth, deliberate. "Miss Bell, this is Senator Jerome Lockwood." Anna blinked, surprised. "Senator? I've read your case, your testimony, your background. I'd like to meet." She paused. "Why?" "Because I believe we're about to see a shift in this city, and I want to make sure the right voices are guiding it." Anna didn't answer immediately. Her instincts were sharp. She'd seen too many promises turn sour. "I'm not here to be anyone's symbol," she said finally. "Good," Lockwood replied. "Because I'm not asking for a symbol. I'm asking for a partner." He gave her an address, a private meeting space in the Civic District. And just like that, the future opened another door. That night, Anna sat alone in her apartment, Eleanor's Bible in her lap, her fingers running along the worn leather. She wasn't praying. Not exactly. She was remembering. Her mother's hands in the garden, her voice explaining clauses in eviction notices. Her silence when they lost the house but not their dignity. A soft knock pulled Anna back. Taylor stood in the doorway holding a folder. "Something you need to see." She opened it. Inside, a sealed affidavit, notarized and dated 6 months ago. It was from a former assistant of Elwood confessing to shredding internal emails, hiding transaction files, and forging fake nonprofit affiliations. "Where did you get this?" "Courier dropped it off anonymously," Taylor said. "But that's not the big part." Anna flipped to the last page. Her eyes froze. The signature wasn't the assistant's. It was Elwood's son, Nathan Elwood. Anna's heart skipped. Taylor sat across from her. "Looks like the old man's kingdom is starting to crack from the inside." Anna exhaled slowly. "Then we don't push harder. We wait. Watch. Let them destroy themselves." The next morning, her face was everywhere. CNN, The Atlantic, even the New York Times ran a feature titled, "The Bell That Rang Too Loud to Ignore." People quoted her in protests. Schools asked her to speak. Lawyers offered her internships, but she declined most offers. Her mission wasn't to be admired. It was to make change stick. On Sunday, a town hall was held at the newly reopened Eleanor Bell Center. Hundreds showed. It wasn't just the poor. Business owners, teachers, firefighters, retirees. They came for a reason. At 3:15 p.m., Anna took the microphone. "I was never meant to be the one holding this mic," she said. "That honor belongs to my mother. But if I've learned anything, it's that silence breeds suffering. And suffering is what they count on. But not anymore." She raised Eleanor's Bible in one hand, her voice strong. "We've been called weak, ignorant, unworthy. But today, I call you something else, witnesses, to what we've survived and what we're about to build." Applause thundered. People stood. Some wept. That night, Anna walked back to her apartment and found a small envelope taped to her door. Inside, a single sentence handwritten in clean, elegant ink. "You will never silence us again." No signature. Just a final reminder. She looked toward the city skyline, golden in the fading sun. The war wasn't over, but the world was listening now. The city had changed, but not nearly enough. 3 weeks after the town hall, Anna sat in a cold, fluorescent-lit courtroom once again, this time not as a witness, but as lead counsel in a civil rights case filed against the city's Department of Housing. Beside her sat Mr. and Mrs. Washington, an elderly black couple evicted from their home of 42 years based on what Anna had proven was forged documentation. Across the aisle sat 4 city attorneys in designer suits. Anna wore a threadbare blazer, one of Eleanor's old court skirts, and a bracelet made by the kids from the community center. She didn't dress for show. She dressed for the fight. The judge, a middle-aged white man named Harold Ellison, stared over his glasses, reviewing the last of the written testimony. "Miss Bell," he said, "you may proceed with your closing statement." Anna rose slowly, the weight of truth in every step. She approached the front of the courtroom, gaze steady. The entire room seemed to still. "I was told once that people like me don't belong in places like this," she began, her voice calm. "And for a long time, I believed that lie. I believed that being poor, or dirty, or black made your truth easier to dismiss. But I stand here today to say that truth, real truth, does not care about the polish on your shoes. It cares about what you carry in your heart." The opposing counsel shifted. The judge said nothing. Anna continued, locking eyes with the courtroom. "My clients were not evicted because of a law, they were evicted because of a lie. A calculated, deliberate lie, executed with impunity. And if this court allows it to stand, then the law becomes just another tool for the powerful to crush the powerless. And that is not justice. That is erasure." A pause. Heavy. "If we want a city worth living in, worth raising children in, then we have to build it on something stronger than silence. We have to build it on courage." She turned, looked at the Washingtons. "We can start here, today." Silence. Then a single sound, Judge Ellison's gavel striking the bench. "Court is adjourned. A ruling will be delivered within 10 days. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Anna waved them off. She had somewhere to be. At sunset, she arrived at her mother's old gravesite, alone. She placed a bouquet of fresh wildflowers, Eleanor's favorite, and knelt. "I spoke loud today, Mama," she whispered. "Not because I wasn't scared, but because I was, and I remembered what you said. That fear isn't the absence of courage, it's the reason for it." She sat in silence for a while, watching the wind pass through the tall grass. Then her phone buzzed. A message from Senator Lockwood. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Capitol steps. Be ready to speak. Anna didn't reply. She simply stared out into the darkening sky. The next morning, she stood at the foot of the Capitol steps. Dozens of state representatives, activists, and news crews gathered as Lockwood approached the podium. He spoke of reform, of ethics, of restoring trust in a bruised legal system. And then he said, "But real change doesn't come from politicians. It comes from people. It comes from voices that refuse to be quiet." He gestured to Anna. "It comes from women like Anna Bell." Gasps, flashes. She stepped up. Anna didn't have a prepared speech. She didn't need one. "My name is Anna Bell," she said. "I'm not a senator. I'm not rich. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I'm the daughter of a maid who taught herself law by reading eviction notices. And today, I represent people who've been told they're too small to matter." She glanced at the crowd. "If you ever felt like your story was too quiet, your name too unknown, or your pain too inconvenient, then know this. I see you. I hear you. And you matter." Applause. Some people cried. Others stood with fists over their hearts. Later that afternoon, she returned to the Eleanor Bell Center. The building had been repainted in soft earth tones. Kids ran around, elders sat at picnic tables, and a mural of Eleanor stretched across the side wall, her face serene, her hands holding open a book of law. Taylor met Anna at the door. "We got the grant." She turned to him, surprised. "The federal one?" He nodded. $500,000. Enough to keep the center running for at least 5 years. She exhaled, emotion catching in her throat. Inside, Danielle handed her a thick envelope. "You've been invited to speak at the National Bar Association's conference next month. They want to honor your work." Anna smiled softly. "It's not just my work." That night, as the sun dipped low and jazz hummed from the community center's speakers, Anna walked to the old rooftop, the same place she used to sit with her mother as a child. She carried a journal blank, leather-bound, a gift from the staff. She opened it and began to write. Page 1. "I am the daughter of a woman who swept floors but stood taller than any man in a courtroom. I am the voice she never got to raise, and I will not be silenced." From down below, laughter rose like incense. And as Anna looked up at the stars, she didn't feel small. She felt infinite. Her mother had fought with her hands. Now, Anna would fight with her words, and the city finally was listening.